Hey, what is up guys, Claak here, and today I thought I would make a 7.25 guide for balanced druids because in my streams I get a lot of questions about how I should play it, and I thought it would be best for me just to go over it in a video. Let's go over the talents first, and one of the questions I get all the time is why don't I run Warrior of Elune instead of Star-Lord? And the reason why I run Star-Lord is because this season especially, hardcast is pretty much almost everything that do damage as a Boomkin. Yeah, we get some instant lunar strikes if we're attacked by melee, and for that very reason, I feel like Warrior Elune isn't even that good because it wouldn't do too much damage, and again, most of our damage is all about hardcast, so getting a 20% increase on haste for the spell of Lunar Strike and Solar Wrath is very huge. Again, most of my games, most of my damage, top damage will be Solar Wraths. And again, if you're facing a lot of melee, you're going to get a lot of Lunar Strike procs, so there's really no reason to go for this. I see a lot of people say they do it for burst, but that's not where our burst comes in. Our burst comes in for when you go to Astral Communion, and I'll pretty much explain that a little bit later. Even if you're facing a bunch of casters, I would still never recommend going to Warrior Elune. You can go Warrior Elune if you're just trying to, play around with your class, mess around with the talents, and figure out what works for you. I know for me and most other Boomkins, high rated, don't ever run this. They just do not. It's not viable at all. But again, you can do it for something that's kind of fun and different. Now the next row I get a question a lot. I know some rank 1 players disagree with this playstyle. Most of the time I'm going to be running Renewal. Renewal is super strong. A lot of times you pop it when your healer is in CC, and you should be in bear form when you do pop it because it's going to be a 30% heal, and when you're in bear form you have like 6.8 million health, and if you do 30% of that, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. That's 2+ million heal within a minute and 30-second cooldown, and so that's a lifesaver. I find it helping a lot, but a lot of people will argue, why don't you just run Displacer Beast? If you Displacer Beast, if you port behind a pillar, you're going to be not taking any damage. Would you rather do that? I find myself that doesn't really help, because if I'm going to Displacer Beast, what am I going to do? I'm going to blink behind a pillar next to my healer usually. So if I bring to my healer, that is probably one of the worst things you can do, because all that ends up happening is you're bringing the enemy to your healer to get CC'd, and they could potentially make a swap to him. So I find it never using it. But I do say if you're facing double melee like a TSG or something, you can run Displacer Beast with Typhoon, and basically you're going to just be running around the whole time. You'll be Typhoon the melee when they're on you, blinking, so you're going to be rotating between a 30-second cooldown and another 30-second cooldown. So if you are trying to go the mobility style and try to keep melee off of you, I do recommend to go to Displacer Beast and Typhoon. But again, it's only for when you face in double melee. That's pretty much just going to tunnel you. Most teams are going to tunnel you in general because you are a Boomkin. You're too dangerous to be free casting. You're kind of like a Destro Warlock, but in terms of CC, you're a little bit worse. Now for the next row, it's going to be Guardian Infinity without a doubt. Never go into Resto Infinity or Pharaoh Infinity unless you're trying to do 2s. You might go on a Resto Infinity for more survivability, but again, for 3s, you never really want to go out of Guardian Infinity. For one, the reduce all damage taken by 60% is really strong, and the other reason why we go into it is for Frenzy Regeneration. Basically, you can go ahead and go bear form, pop double Frenzy Regeneration, and basically within that 2 seconds that you have, all that damage you're going to take is pretty much just going to heal you back up. So it is very strong. Now for the next row, all 3 of them are debatable of what you can go. I personally like to run Massive Tangle most of the time, and also it depends on your comp. Like, for instance, I won Windwalker, Mistweaver in 3, so we have a lot of suns. There's no reason for me to go to Mighty Bash. I'm just going to DR stuff, and having Mass Entanglement allows you to pretty much just root beam stuff almost instantly. And when you go for that root beam, try to be careful, because a lot of times people can jump it. And when I say they can jump it, all they literally do is just jump, and then if you root beam during that jump period, the beam will actually be up in the air, so when they fall down, they're not going to be silenced. So be wary of that. A lot of teams are kind of try to abuse that bug. In my opinion, that's a bug. I've never seen a spell that won't work anymore because someone jumped. And of course you can go to Mighty Bash, but again, it's going to be really hard for you to get those root beams off, because if you go to Mighty Bash, that means you're going to have to hard cast root, and what that means, if you hard cast root, I'm sure the healer is going to be looking for and spamming Dispel on himself, because he's going to expect a root beam to come out after that. So I really find myself Mass Entanglement probably being the best thing. rating, especially at higher rating. Again, healers are going to be looking for that hard cast. If you run Mighty Bash, healers are going to be looking for that hard cast to dispel themselves so they don't get beamed, because root beam is a very popular thing. And again, the only time I'd run Typhoon is paired up with Displacer Beast. Basically, you're just going to be using this just to peel melee off of you, and that's pretty much the only time. Now for the next row, now without a doubt, Incarnation is probably going to be the best bet for Boomkins. It's a 35% damage increase, and you can pretty much just read it, but it's basically probably the best thing here. I know Soul of Forest sounds like it's really good, basically how I talked about Star-Lord. Trust me on this. Incarnation is your best bet. When you pop Incarn, it is very scary for the opposing team. They pretty much have to shut you down for a total of 30 seconds, and it's hard to shut down a class for 30 seconds. But again, if you're able to free cast, and that's pretty much when you pop this, is when you're able to free cast and go for a kill. This is a oh shit button for the opposing team, like, oh, we got a CC or we got a LOS. So when you do pop it, again, they can LOS and they will be focusing you if they're not already. So try to do it at a good time. Use your instinct of when you feel like you're going to be able to do some damage, and that's when I pop it. And now for the next row, Astral Communion is going to be your best bet here. Usually I like to pop it when I'm going ham on a certain target. So basically when I get a root beam on a healer, that's when I pop this, because what I do is I pop double Star Surge after this, and then double Star Surge gives you, Solar Wrath procs and allows you to do more damage. So again, this is for burst, and it's only a minute 30-second cooldown. I know it might seem like a long time, but I'm telling you, you'll have this every other burst. So this, again, this is a free double Star Surge, and Star Surge can hit up to 500k alone. And then what it happens after Star Surge, there's sometimes these procs, and it's actually from your legendary weapon. And this is the legendary proc that I'm talking about, the Power of Goldrin. Basically when you pop Star Surge, another proc can happen doing 283k, and that too can crit, so that can crit up to 500k. So you can basically do a million Star Surges, and that's every minute 30 seconds. So it's very strong for burst again. Now for the next row, you're going to be running Nature's Balance. Again, you kind of want to be saving a lot of your time. You don't want to be putting your Moonfires and Starfires on targets all the time, especially your main target that you're going. So when you have a Solar Wrath that extends the time, or even instant Lunar Strike procs that extend the time of your dots, it saves you GCD, which allows you to do more damage. So Nature's Balance, in my opinion, is the best. I know some people do like to run Stellar Drift. Basically what this does is increases your radius of your Starfall and allows you to cast within that Starfall. But again, I personally don't like it too much. I don't really find it really helping me, even though classes do tend to LOS a lot. But again, for me personally, I don't find it worthy. I don't think it helps. I find Nature's Balance probably the best thing. Now let's go to the PvP talents. Glider's Medallion is a must as a Boomkin. At least I feel that way. You can go to Adaptation and Relentless, but to me, those are very reckless talents as a Boomkin, because most of the time, again, you're going to be getting tunneled. So let's say you're getting tunneled by an RP and they get you out of bear form when they're going hard. You need to trinket and go bear form, and they'll pretty much save you. RMP has very strong openers, and they have very good setups. So this is pretty much your oh shit button, strictly to go into bear form. You can use it to play aggressive, like if you need to get a CC to get a kill, you can trinket it, but there's a lot of variables. Like if you're facing a spellcaster, you can get away with trinketing some kind of CC on you, because again, the spellcaster is not going to just randomly gullible you like an RMP, unless it's like double destro or something silly. But most of the time, I find myself needing Glider's Medallion for bear form. Now for the next row, Mighty Quickness is going to be your best bet here. Initiation is very situational. I never find myself ever using it. In Train of Thought, you're never going to be able to use it, because teams are always going to be hitting you. There's no way you're not going to get attacked for 8 seconds. That's ridiculous. Now for the next row, I actually find myself never going to Iron Feather. Even when I go into Iron Feather against like double melee, I find myself needing to go bear form. So you just take too much damage. Even though it sounds really juicy, Iron Feather increases armor by 50% and reduces the chance to be critically hit by melee attacks by 20%. I know that sounds so appetizing. It sounds like it works, but it just simply doesn't. I don't know what about it. I don't know if the tooltip actually does what it says, but it just sucks ass. It really does. So Celestial Garden is probably going to be your best bet here. You're going to take 20% less damage from spells, and you're also going to increase the healing you receive by 20%. So that's very huge. This is probably the best thing here. Now for the next row, Eclipse is going to be the best bet here. Taking a minute off of your Incarnation cooldown is very huge. And also, if you read it, it says when you pop it, it gives you a 70% reduction in silence and interrupts for 10 seconds. So when you do pop it, you know, you're able to go ham. This talent allows you to go a little bit harder than you normally would. So if you went to Incarn and not Eclipse, you're pretty much screwing yourself. These go together very well. They're made to go with each other, and again, it's just totally worth it. Now for the next row, Boomkin Aura is going to be your best bet because you're always going to be spamming Star Surges. So when you Star Surge, it's going to give you and your allies a 15% crit buff. You can't really get much better than this. Pickling Thorns, bad. Dying Stars, bad. Like, this is just one of the best talents that we have as a Boomkin. Now for the next row, Cyclone is going to be your best bet here. This allows us to have an additional huge CC, one of the most overpowered CCs in the game actually, just because you can clone so many important things, and the healer can't really dispel it unless he's a priest and he mass dispels it. Again, what I like to do is I like to CC the healer with a root beam, cyclone one of the off DPS, and then when root beam is off, go ahead and cyclone that healer. Now as a PvPer, you really want to stay away from clicking as much as possible. That being said, you're pretty much forced to have macros, and let's go over the macros that I have. Now keep in mind, for my macros, I don't use raid frames. I use the default version that Blizzard gives you. I know a lot of people like the raid frames. I personally just don't like it. I'm too old school. I can't get used to it. With that being said, my macros aren't going to be the best for you probably, but I'm just going to go over mine. I have Dispel macros for my Party 1, Party 2. Also, I have Healing macros for Party 1, Party 2. I have an Innervate macro for my healer specifically, so it just makes it a lot easier. The only problem is whenever you get a new healer, you have to change this macro. That's the only upsetting thing about it, but again, it's not that big of a deal. I have Root macros for my Focus target, my Arena 1, my Arena 2, Arena 3, and I also have Mass Entanglement Focus macro. Also, these two macros go together. Again, you're going to do a lot of root beams, and it's pretty much the same macro. So slash cast at focus solar beam, slash cast at focus mass entanglement. Very simple stuff, right? Now for the most important macro as a druid that I think you must have, absolutely have, is your Cyclone macros. So I have Cyclone 1, Cyclone 2, and then Cyclone 3 Arena. So basically the first Arena 1 is going to be the person on the top, Arena 2 is going to be a person in the middle, Arena 3 is going to be the person on the bottom. Very simple stuff. So one more time, let's go over what I have. I have Curse macros, I have Iterate macros, I have Root macros, I have a Mass Entanglement macro, I have a Solar Beam, and I also have Cyclones, and that's pretty much all you really need as a Boomkin. Well, that's it for the macros. Now let's go ahead and go over the spells that should be prioritized during Arena. Now this is for people who don't really know Boomkin too much and they don't know the spam in arenas. So it's pretty much just your PvE rotation if you do PvE as a Boomkin. What we're going to do is get your dots going, and you're obviously going to have the 6 stacks. That's obviously huge just for the stacks. Basically what this does is increases your nature damage by 6%. So it's obviously going to be really good. Then what you like to do after that is start doing your new moons, half moon, into your full moon. And once you get your full moon, you're going to go ahead and pop Star Surge, and it's going to give you some empowerment, lunar and solar strikes. So after you get your double Star Surge procs, you're going to be pretty much just dumping it. So you're going to start spamming solar rafts, and even after you have no more procs, you're still going to be doing it. The only time I ever cast lunar strike is when I have an instant proc. Don't ever hard cast it unless you get kicked out of your solar rafts ability. So that's pretty much it. Again, you're just going to pop your dots on, get your full moons, spam Star Surges for your astral powers, and just solar raft the whole time. That's pretty much all you're going to be doing. Now since you're going to be getting tunneled, what's going to end up happening is you're going to be getting kicked on your full moons most likely, and your cyclones. What's great is they're on both separate DRs, meaning that if someone kicks your full moon, that's okay. You know what you can do? You can go ahead and start CCing. You can either CC the healer, CC the DPS. It's very strong. A lot of times you're going to get both their kicks right out of the way. And when they kick your cyclone, guess what's going to be up? Your full moon. So again, they kick your full moon, it's okay. Go for cyclones. If they kick your cyclone, it's okay. Your full moon's going to be back up. So that's why a lot of times I don't like to sit there and try to juke people, just because if they're going to kick it, I'm going to allow them to kick it just so I can get another ability off. It's totally alright. I see a lot of people that come to my stream and say, why don't you ever juke? Why don't you ever juke? For one, a lot of classes have like a ton of interrupts, so they're going to be abusing it. Yeah, you could go ahead and juke, but what you're going to be doing is spending that time just juking. You could be juking the whole game practically, and they would never kick you. So just go for the damn spell. Just cast it. If they kick you, it's okay. Again, go for Cyclone, CC the team, get some pressure off of your team and onto them. And then if they kick the Cyclone, it's okay. You can go ahead and do full moons and solar apps. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I really want you guys to understand it's okay to get kicked. It's okay. You don't have to sit there and try to juke. You can juke, but again, you could be wasting a lot of time. So I want you to think about that, if it's worth it or not. So again, here's my CC rotation. I like to pop root and then beam. So apparently you can't root these dummies, but I did cast root on this dummy. And what I like to do after that beam, after the root, is I like to go ahead and cast Cyclone. So you can pretty much put someone in a 16-second CC, and it's probably one of the most unique and overpowered things. A lot of people say Boomkins need nerf, like their damage needs nerf. It's not our damage that makes us super strong. It's our CC that makes us super strong. And that's what people don't get a lot. And that's what a lot of people don't get about the Boomkin class. It's not our damage that's over insane. Our damage is on par with a lot of other classes like Desher Warlocks. Desher Warlocks have bigger bursts than us, but yeah, people say Boomkins need nerf. I think the real issue lies within our CC. Again, that's pretty much all you need to know. The DPS rotation is very simple. You get your dots going, pop your full moons, pop your star surges, and get your solar apps going. That's pretty much it. Now what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be spamming your dots on everyone. You're only going to want to be doing it on possibly 2 targets. Obviously you're going to do it on your main target and then your off target that's a possible kill. So again, just because for the sake of time, your dots don't really do too much in general. It's more about all of our hard casts. Again, if you're spending all your time putting dots on people, you're not really controlling the game. I think Boomkins, to me, is all about control. So that's why you'll see me CC a lot. Alright guys, that is it for this video. I hope this video has helped you. If you liked it, please hit that like button. If you really liked it, go ahead and hit that sub button. Show me some support. As always guys, get out there and pwn snubs.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?